Good evening, hockey fans, and welcome to The Trap. I'm your host, Bill Botch. On today's episode, we're going to take a look at the Metropolitan Division in the upcoming 2022-2023 season. I'm going to give you my predictions as to where the standings are going to fall and which teams are going to make the playoffs and who's going to be looking in from the outside. So we could start at the bottom. I did it by months. So there's teams that get off to have really favorable months, and there's teams that have really difficult months. And I think the Devils get off to a really hot start, which I've talked about previously. Also, the Rangers, I think, have a huge November. The Carolina Hurricanes, November, December, pretty much January. I think the Hurricanes are going to be one of the best teams in the league. And I kind of see them running away with first place in the Metro. With that said, what we'll do is we can start at the Philadelphia Flyers. The Flyers have a lot going on. They're riddled with horrible contracts. They don't perform. They just got John Tortorella. They brought in Tony DeAngelo, who is could be a distraction and obviously has a past of being a controversial figure in the locker room. And I think between him and John Tortorella, it should make for some good storylines throughout the year. Now, there are a couple players on the Flyers that I am fond of. Sean Couturier, when he's healthy, is one of the best two-way forwards in the league. I like Ivan Provorov. While some people might not think that he's lived up to the hype, I still think that he's a steady defenseman. But the Flyers have cap space problems. You could tell the vibe from the fan base already is not positive, and I'm not expecting much from them. So what I did was I totaled up all the points from what I think is going to happen this season by team in the Metro, and then I looked up Vegas team totals, amount of points for the end of the year, and I compared the two of them, and it'll give you an idea as to how far I was off. And now I put my points together before I knew what the Vegas totals were. So I have Vegas at Philly. I got them with a total of 62 points this year. There are months where it looks pretty brutal. Months where you're winning 3 games. I think in November and December I see Philly only winning 3 games in both of those months, so that's tough. And there's no need to lay it on Philly. We all know what they got going on. So surprisingly enough to some of you, in the 7th place I got the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now obviously Columbus made a huge splash this offseason by signing Johnny Gaudreau in the 11th hour. Gaudreau was talking to New Jersey on the opening day of free agency. 4 o'clock rolls around, and Kekalainen reaches out to Gaudreau, and then he makes a decision on the spot and decides to go there. And then once he did that, Patrick Laine signed a long-term deal, showed that he wanted to stay. He's kind of been a guy who's been hot and cold, and he's got his critics as well. So Columbus had it coming to them. They've had a long list of people who have left that city, and it's sad to see. I can't imagine if I was a Columbus fan just watching all these people walk out the door between Bobrovsky, Panarin, Seth Jones. The list goes on and on and on. So I was happy for them to see that. I actually wasn't happy for them at all, being honest. But they signed Johnny Gaudreau. I am a big fan of Zach Werenski. I think he reminds me of an old Devils defenseman, to be honest with you. He's a guy that is solid in every part of the ice. He has a good two-way game, and obviously he's now the captain of the team. And I think I like their draft pick. They got David Jiricek, who is a mobile puck-moving defenseman from Slovakia. He's got some size. I like that pick. They also have Kent Johnson in their pipeline, who, if you guys watch the World Juniors or Michigan play, he's a superstar in the making. Really fun kid to watch. tries all kinds of trickery, and he's a guy that is going to be a household name in the upcoming years. So at the end of the day, I've got Columbus with 82 points. Now, Vegas has them with 80.5, so I have them with a 1.5 more than Las Vegas, which I was surprised it was so close, and they would come in 7th place in the Metro. In 6th place in the Metro, with 88 points, I have the Washington Capitals. Now, the Washington Capitals, they obviously cleaned house in the crease, and they moved on from Vanacek. They ended up bringing in Darcy Kemper, who to me is still, he's an average goalie, in my opinion. But the problem with Washington is they have too many injuries. They have Carl Hagelin, they have Backstrom, who could be done for the entire season, and they have Tom Wilson. And Tom Wilson, as much as we hate him, Tom Wilson is a pretty productive player and does make a difference when he's on the ice. Now, Washington obviously is getting a little long in the tooth, so TJ Oshie is going to be 36 by the time this season's over. Backstrom's going to be 35, and Ovechkin's going to be 37. Their window is closing, and I think that if these younger teams like Columbus or New Jersey or the Rangers are starting to, maybe the tide is starting to change a little bit, and you're going to see some of these younger teams take a step forward. And in my opinion, this is a year where I think the Devils are going to make that next move to be able to get past teams like Washington, who has had their number for a while now. So, Vegas has Washington at 95 points, and I got them at 88, so that's -7. So that's a pretty big swing. Vegas is much higher on Washington than I am. Now, obviously, I think with Washington's prior success that Vegas plays that into their hands, and people like betting on Alexander Ovechkin, as they should. But I think this might be a year without the help of Backstrom. He might have a little it's not going to slow him down at all, but I think that team is going to hurt a little bit, and they might slide down the standings a little bit in the Metro. At number 5, I have the New York Islanders. I got the Islanders with 90 total points for the end of the season, and Vegas has them with 93.5. So I have them 3.5 points lower than Las Vegas. The Islanders are not as bad as they were last year. They kind of got the shit end of the stick by having to play, whatever it was, 15 games on the road before their new UBS arena opened. I think that the Islanders are good, actually. I think Sorokin is going to have a breakout season. He's going to be a guy that is looked at as a top 5 goalie in the league. I think that's definitely possible. I love what they have on their back end. They signed Noah Dobson. They signed Romanov. These guys are the future on the back end of the team. They still have Pulock and Pelech. They also are extremely strong down the middle. They have Brock Nelson, Matt Barzal, JGP, and Cizikas. So I really like the way that they're set up. They're a team that likes to keep the scoring low and keep games tight. And they have the goaltending, and they have the defense, and they have the strength down the middle of the ice to make all that happen. I'm curious to see what happens. I mean, I wasn't a fan of them moving Barry Trotz. I thought that was a little premature, but I'm curious to see how the team plays for their new coach and what happens with the Isles. So I like the Isles, not to make the playoffs, but to make a jump from last year and to be in the mix of things down the stretch. Now, number 4, I have the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, the Penguins have made the playoffs for the last 16 seasons in a row, which is insane. That reminds me of like the old Detroit Red Wings. They decided you have Sidney Crosby, you have Malkin. We know that they're getting up there in age, but when you have talent of that caliber, you don't just give up on them and you don't rebuild while they still want to play and they still want to be in Pittsburgh. So they went out and they got Chris Letang signed to a 6-year deal. He's 35 now. I mean, I think that's not going to age very well. I didn't see why it was necessary to sign him to such a long deal. They signed Malkin to a 4-year deal. He's 36. Crosby's 35 years old. They signed Brian Russ, who I like as a player, but they signed him to a 6-year deal. He's going to be 36 when that's over. They paid him $30 million. While I get it, you want to have these vets locked up and you're keeping the team together. I think that once this starts to fall apart, it's going to be a really slippery slope. So I think between Pittsburgh and Washington, you're going to have two teams that are going to have complete rebuilds. And I mean, Pittsburgh's going to be stuck with these contracts that are going to be impossible to move. They're a team that I wonder, if it doesn't work, it could be really bad. But as of now, I mean, you've seen Sidney Crosby still has game. Letang still is a great defenseman. Malkin tends to spend a lot of time injured in the last couple of years, but they went and got Jeff Petrie. I like what Pittsburgh has, and I'm not willing to bet against Malkin and Crosby and Letang at this point. So I got Pittsburgh finishing the season with 93 points, which is 9 less than what Vegas has them at 102. I think they're going to give up a couple games. I think there could be injuries. I think the age and the physicality that team plays with could catch up with them at some point. Now, number 3. This is interesting because we're talking about the New Jersey Devils.
Tonight is your night, bro. Tonight is your night, bro.
I know. Now this is a huge jump. So the Devils finished the season last year with 63 or 64 points, I think it was, and I got them finishing this year with 93 points. Now, Vegas has them at 90.5, so I have them with 2.5 more points than what Vegas expects. The over obviously is probably not a very popular bet in Las Vegas, being that the Devils have not had any success recently. But I think bringing in Andrew Brunette and a healthy year of Dougie Hamilton, a healthy year of Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier is taking huge strides. We traded Ty Smith and we brought in Marino. We have some goaltending. Mackenzie Blackwood hopefully turns back to the player that we know he could be. We've talked about the Devils over and over. I think that the Devils are going to make a big stride. They're going to get off to a hot start, and like I've said in previous podcasts, it's really going to come down to March. I think they could have a very, very tough time in March. They could go like 5-11 March and give up their where they were in the standings. And then you're going to see what kind of fight and what kind of will and character that the team has. I'm hoping that a guy like Palat will kind of break up those long 7-8 game losing streaks that the team has dealt with over the past few years. That you go on a streak like that, and let's be real, you're never making the playoffs after you go through something like that. So I'm excited to see the team this year and to see what happens if they can get off to a hot start, win some games, be high in the Metro going, into the new year, and have their health. If that could create that confidence, and these kids can take that next step to be a playoff team. So I like New Jersey to make the playoffs in third. In second place, I have the New York Rangers. So I have the Rangers at 102 points. Vegas likes them at 99.5, so I have them with 2.5 more points than Las Vegas predicts. The Rangers made some interesting moves this year. They lost Strome, which I think is kind of flown under the radar. I think he's actually does some little things better than people give him credit for. Andrew Kopp it was the Rangers gave up a first-round pick for Kopp, and they let him walk in free agency. He was great. He had like 18 points in 16 games. He was physical. He was a guy that if I was the Rangers, I would have tried to have kept. Georgiev obviously is gone. He's in Colorado now, and they have Halak. Halak's 37 years old. He's a journeyman. He's been around. I mean, you really have to count on Igor Shesterkin, who is probably the best goaltender in the world right now. You have to plan on him staying healthy, because if he goes down, and you could say this about a bunch of teams that have franchise goalies, but if he goes down, you're going to be dealing with Halak, and that is going to be very tough. They went out and they signed Vinny Trocheck, who I like Vinny Trocheck, but they signed him to a 7-year, $40 million deal. The guy's 29 years old. I don't see how that fits in with their core group. I really like K'Andre Miller. I love his game. I think he's somebody good. I thought that the Jacob Trouba captaincy was a strange pick when you had Kreider there, and a couple years ago they tried to move Kreider. They couldn't do it, so they signed him to a long-term deal. That was kind of weird. And now Kreider comes out, has the best season of his career, and then you give the captaincy to Jacob Trouba, who, I mean, he's gotten some flack for not having a very favorable contract. So there's been some weird moves with the Rangers, but I still think that they have the talent and the youth, and they have the goaltending. They have Adam Fox, they have K'Andre Miller, they have players on their back end. They're kind of loaded, so I like them to walk away in the second spot. And then at number 1, I have the Carolina Hurricanes. And now this is the biggest jump. I really like Carolina this year. I think they've made some great moves, and I think that this is going to be a team that's going to contend for the Cup. So I have Carolina at 115 points, and that's 13 more points than what Vegas has them at. I mean, they're good in every facet of the game. So last year, Carolina had 2.44 goals against, which was number 1 in the NHL. They had the number 1 penalty kill in the NHL at 88%. They were 9th in the league in scoring. They're loaded up front with young talent between Sebastian Aho, Svechnikov, Teravainen, Seth Jarvis, Kotkaniemi, Natchez. They have a great young core. They moved Tony DeAngelo out, who could have been a headache, or they have a really good thing going. He was kind of a variable. He was going to be looking for a big contract. They moved him out. They did lose Nino Niederreiter, who I really do like, and they lost Vinny Trocheck as well. But they went out. They got Brent Burns. He had 10 goals, 44 assists, 54 points last year, which was more than Tony DeAngelo. And you're going to have Burns playing on a pairing with Jacob Slavin, and I think that is going to be pretty solid. I mean, those are, he's a veteran guy who's going to come in and he can move the puck. He loves to shoot. He had one of the most amount of shots taken by a defenseman in the league last year. And then they went out and there was a cap dump from Las Vegas, and they take in Max Pacioretty. And I know he's not going to play at the beginning of the season, but Pacioretty is a guy who's been around, another veteran, a guy that wants to win a cup. And I think he's a pure goal scorer. I mean, he scored 30 goals 6 times. So this is a guy that knows how to put the puck in the net. He's not going to be relied on as to be the captain of the team, or if he doesn't have a good game, or if he's not making noise in the locker room and getting the guys amped, and the team is going to fall apart. He's just going to be another spoke on the wheel. And I think they're set up to make a serious move this year. I mean, I love Rob Brindamore as a coach. That team plays hard. That team plays hard every night. And I'm curious to see what they can do down the stretch. So the final rankings, I got the Hurricanes at 115 points. I got in second place the New York Rangers, third place the New Jersey Devils, fourth place the Pittsburgh Penguins, fifth place the New York Islanders, sixth place the Washington Capitals, seventh the Columbus Blue Jackets, and eighth the dumpster fire Philadelphia Flyers. So we got a lot going on. We have rookies report to camp this week, so we're going to see the rookie tournaments going on, so you're going to get some footage of these kids skating and see what they look like, how they're coming into camp, what size they are. And then next week, everybody reports to camp and camp opens. And then next thing you know, we have preseason hockey going on. So there's going to be a lot to talk about in the next upcoming weeks. So after rookie camp, I'll probably release an episode, and we'll also talk about the Atlantic Division, and we'll get an idea as to how the Eastern Conference shakes out, and we'll compare the Atlantic to the Metro, and we'll see who falls into those wild card spots. So we got a lot of good stuff going on. I hope you guys are enjoying the podcast. Please hit subscribe, leave comments, give me some feedback, let me know what you're thinking, and I will talk to you soon. Bill Botch from The Trap. I'm out.
Makes you wonder how the other half died. Other half died. Makes you wonder. But here come the man with a look in his eye. It's fed on nothing but full of pride. Look at him go, look at him kick. Makes you wonder how the other half live. The devil inside. Every single one of us, the devil inside. Devil inside, devil inside. Every single one of us, the devil inside. Oh. Look in its eye. Future uncertain, but certainly slight. Look at the faces, listen to the bells. It's hard to believe we need a place called hell. Place called hell. The devil inside, the devil inside. Every single one of us, the devil inside. Devil inside, the devil inside. Every single one of us, the devil inside. Ooh. Na, 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 na. A woman with a look in her eye. She's raised on leather, with flesh on her mind. Words and weapons, sharper than knives. Makes you wonder how the other half died.